Do you see this man? This is the man that actually managed to sell an entire airport that never even existed in the first place. And where did that $242 million from Banco Noroeste go? Well, the offshore accounts of these countries sure got a big fat increase over a period of 3 years. Man, this story's exciting. So without further ado, here's how a Nigerian scammer sold fake airport for $242 million. So let's just dive right into it, shall we? How it all began. The year was 1995. Emmanuel Nwude was feeling short on cash, so he was thinking of new ways to make money. Since he served as the director of Union Bank of Nigeria, he was feeling confident he could come up with a plan to make a ton of money quick. So he picked up the phone and started calling some major banks across the world. The one that answered his phone calls was Nelson Sakaguchi, the director of Brazil's Banco Noroeste. Now you might ask, why did he pick up the phone to a nobody? Well, when Emmanuel called him on the phone, he wasn't a nobody. He pretended to be none other than Nigeria's Paul Ogwana, who was serving as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria back in the day. He went on to tell him how he had a big opportunity for him. The only thing he would need to do is invest $242 million. The quote-unquote new airport was being built in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. It seems like everyone can make us rich once we make them rich, but Nelson fell for it. The reason? Emmanuel promised him that there would be a $10 million commission from the deal. Wanting to make some quick money and knowing he would only be spending the bank's assets, he quickly jumped on the hot offer before Emmanuel took it off the table. Hook, line, and sinker. They had him. Over the next 3 years, Nelson wired all of the $242 million to Emmanuel's foreign bank accounts. But since he couldn't have all the money to his name, he had 5 other friends helping him out with this deal, all of them opening bank accounts and all of them in foreign countries. This was money the Nigerian government couldn't track. Problems arise. Nelson Sakaguchi, the head of Banco Noroeste, was taken into the office of Jaime Quares Lopez, one of the major shareholders at the bank. You see, Mr. Lopez has been asking Nelson to bring him the papers for the past 3 years, and he was constantly making excuses as why he couldn't do it. He grabbed him by the neck and got all up in his face. Look, no more stories. I want to see the figures, and I want to see them now. It was at this point that Nelson spilled the beans. You see, there was an awful lot of activity on the account of Banco Noroeste, located in the Cayman Islands. One of the most prominent heads of the bank, leading the overseas department of the Institution of New York, had nothing left to say except the truth. The entire thing started way back in 1995. Nelson received a fax from someone named Mr. Tarafdea Williams, the supposed director of budget and planning at Nigeria's Ministry of Aviation. The fax told the story of a Nigerian citizen who smashed that like button if you haven't done so already. But no, this Nigerian citizen told the Ministry of Aviation that Banco Noroeste was interested in making an investment in their lucrative government project. Nelson's pupils widened and he immediately called them back. You see, he was interested in investing in Abuja, the recently declared capital of Nigeria, and it so happened that a certain gentleman, we're looking at you, Nwude, told Nelson that the government was looking for foreign investor for their project. Being a shrewd banker and a savvy investor, Nelson immediately accepted the deal, but no one could have anticipated the merger of Banco Noroeste with Banco Santander in 1997. And so, Nelson was in a difficult situation. You see, on one hand, he wanted to make that $10 million in commissions, but on the other, families like the Simoson and Cochran wanted to make sure the books were cleared before the merger would take place. But that wasn't possible. Nelson didn't have an answer to the question why 2/5 of the bank's total value and half their capital had been sitting in the Cayman Islands unmonitored. Things began to unravel back in December of 1997. You see, that's when the meeting happened, and soon after a criminal investigation ensued. The scandal and the investigation spread to countries all over the world, and countries like Brazil, Britain, Nigeria, Switzerland, and the good old US of A were all involved in the investigation. In the end, the Samoasan and Cochrane families had to pay the $242 million out of pocket, and the bank collapsed only 3 years later in 2001. Oh, but we have a bunch of Nigerians arrested for their criminal offenses, which means they were all taken to court. Nigeria has just created the EFCC, a government body charged with investigating financial crimes in 2002. Just 2 years later, in 2004, they had one of the biggest cases of fraud in the history of the world. But only 5 of the accomplices were brought to the Abuja courtroom. The 6th was actually too old, and he passed away a few years prior. The Abuja High Court charged all of them with 86 counts of fraudulently seeking advance fees, and around 15 more counts of bribery. This was all related for the sale of the Nigerian airport that never existed in the first place. All of them pleaded not guilty, and the investigation continued. As the investigation continued, there were another 4 companies whose name was dragged through the mud in this case. Seeing how the plot thickened, Judge Lawal Gumi wanted to have nothing more with this unending case. That's when he told that this affair happened in Lagos, and therefore it should be resolved in Lagos. They were all dragged out of the courtroom and transported to the Lagos High Court. And knowing that there were 5 might try to bribe their way out of this one, they were warned against it. But Nwude wouldn't be Nwude if he didn't try to bribe the executive chairman of the EFCC with $75,000 in cold hard cash. He quickly learned that you don't try to bribe the head of an anti-corruption agency with corrupt money, and he was charged with another case of bribery of a government official, as well as the attempted kidnapping of a witness. However, things started to change after Nelson from Banco Noroeste was brought into the courtroom. You see, after his testimony, Nwude immediately pled guilty, hoping that the court would feel sorry for him and give him a minor sentence. But that didn't really happen. Nwude was charged with 5 concurrent 5-year sentences, which climbed to 25 years of jail time. And that's not nearly where everything ended. The court further took all of his assets and returned them to the scammed bank, plus another $10 million in fines to be paid to the Nigerian government for the troubles. But Nigeria didn't really hold its end of the bargain, as Nwude was released about a year later in 2006. After this, he filed a lawsuit against the government trying to recover his seized assets. And you know what? They agreed. The man got $52 million of his assets back. Talk about corruption. Still, this crazy concoction of lies and illegal activities doesn't end here, because they uncovered the blood on Emmanuel's hands. In the summer of 2016, over 200 people stormed the town of Ukpo. 4 policemen were shot, and 1 security guard at a construction site was found dead when the attack had finished. After the investigation began, the police uncovered that 200 people were from the neighboring Abanga community, which had land disputes with the Dunokofia area. The Ambaria State Police Command found Emmanuel Nwude to be involved in this attack, and they arrested him on 27 accounts of murder, terrorist attacks, and attempted murder. And even though he was currently being held at the Agawaka prison in Anambra State, locals doesn't actually trust the police department, and think that Nwude will be a free man once again thanks to his social status and immense wealth. This Nwude case opened the doors for a flood of fraudsters and scammers to enter the scene and live a life of opulence and luxury while having gained their wealth through illegal ways. And with the expansion of the internet, the cyber attacks are that much more rampant. Even though they managed to arrest some of them, there are still thousands more constantly scam elderly people in Western countries for thousands of dollars. One such group is the 419ers, who has been ravaging the internet with their frauds and scams. No wonder there's a nasty stereotype about the Nigerian people. Countries fear their corrupt system. And Nwude was just one of the extreme cases that ravaged the world with all of his scams, and then brought shame to his country by killing an innocent security guard who was just doing his job. And on that note, we end this video. But hey, what's the worst banking fraud you've ever heard of? You can tell us in the comments section below. If you'd like more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of them. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.